So thanks. I'd like to talk to you about the one welfare concept, that how human well-being and animal well-being are linked. So improving animal well-being will improve human well-being and vice versa. And they are linked with the environmental welfare and well-being as well. And it's about strategies that balance and optimize the well-being of animals, people, and the environment. So how are we going with urban cat management? Well, if you look at a scorecard for domestic cat management based on animals, people, and the environment, our research showed that 33% of cats and kittens entering pounds and shelters around Australia never left alive. And councils that were operating their own facilities and accepting more than 50 cats a year, a quarter of them kill 67 to 100% in Victoria and New South Wales, and they're the only states that are transparent. And most of those cats are young and healthy and labelled strays. So how are we going with people? Well, there's now extensive research documenting the negative mental health impact on people euthanizing animals. And it's not just the people directly involved with euthanizing animals, it's the AMOs that are bringing a box load of kittens in that they know will be euthanized as soon as they bring them to the pound. That doesn't do their quality of life any good or their job satisfaction. And now we've published that people caring for cats they don't perceive they own, when those cats were killed, they were having nightmares about it. We interviewed them a year later, and they had evidence of post-traumatic stress. So you would hope with all that killing and impact on people, we would be benefiting the environment. But our research shows that the input of cats into pounds is stable or increasing. And in New South Wales, over a 7-year period, they impounded 173,000 cats. They euthanized 107,000 of them over 7 years. And the intake at the start was 24,000. The intake was 24,000 at the end. So all that killing wasn't decreasing the number of free-roaming cats. So we certainly haven't got 10 out of 10, and I think we really need to give ourselves a fail based on a one welfare scorecard. And it's not just the animals. This is a quote from a person working in a shelter. The effect on mental health is a very real problem, and veterinarians were the most affected. It was terrible to see the impact on them. And this was a senior veterinarian in a shelter, a major shelter. I've seen so many people's lives damaged by having to kill a never-ending stream of cats and kittens. And we accept that cats do predate, they fight, they cause noise disturbances, they pee and poo where they shouldn't, they spread diseases, toxoplasmosis, oocysts, they have kittens, they cost shelters and pounds money, and the methods we're using to manage them at the moment are really having negative human welfare impacts, and some people end up with post-traumatic stress. So what can we do? Well, firstly, we need to stop the kittens, because more than 50% of cats entering shelters and pounds were born in the last 6 months. So it's not rocket science. We need targeted to the suburbs where there's the highest numbers of impoundments or cat-related calls, and then micro-targeted to those locations most at risk of cats being impounded, and offer free desexing programs for the cats. And it's really critical that they be targeted to areas of high impoundments or cat-related calls, and they're disadvantaged areas. So in Queensland, on average, 7 cats per 1,000 residents are impounded. In Ipswich, partly because it's low socioeconomic and partly because they give out trap cages to complainants, they have 15 cats per 1,000 residents. And 7 cats per 1,000 residents is actually the average for Australia. So we looked for suburbs that had more than 20 cats per 1,000 residents impounded. And we found 3 suburbs that we started off with our targeted program that have a population of 38,000 people combined. And this is pretty telling and very typical of the suburbs that have cat problems. So these are the 3 suburbs, and you can see the unemployment rate when these stats were obtained for Australia was 6.9%, but Goodna was double that, and they're all substantially higher. Again, higher education levels across Australia, 22% of adults have higher education, Rosewood 6%, and 8% in Redbank Plains. And then you look at the median weekly income. The average for Australia is $1,700 a week for a household of 2.5 people. Look at Goodna, less than $1,200 for 2.8 people. And that's median, which means that half the households have less than that income. And this is a really important study where they found that the annual family income is the strongest predictor of whether cats in the household are desexed. And in Australia, in disadvantaged suburbs, more than 30% of households are on less than $800 a week. And it's $300 to $500 to desex and microchip a female cat. It's at the upper range of this if the cat is pregnant or it's lactating. And people care for an average of 1.5 cats. So you can see in those disadvantaged suburbs, people don't have the funds to pay to desex a female cat. So we went out with brochures and also social media. We were very lucky that, and we are very lucky that Bridget Bardot Foundation is supporting this project and they're paying for the desexing. And we're very grateful that the RSPCA Queensland and AWL Queensland are desexing them for what Bridget Bardot pays. We got 3,000 free vaccinations and flea and tick treatment from MSD Animal Health, and the microchipping register we get free from Central Animal Records. So then we need to stop the timid and shy cats because that's the other group that's mainly euthanized. And semi-owners caring for 1 to 3 cats represent a significant avenue to rehome these timid and shy cats. And they're people where the cat's walked in, chosen them, and they've started to feed it. And it's far better to get them to adopt them, because those cats, because they're free roaming, they're more likely to be a source of complaint behaviours. They're therefore more likely to be impounded and more likely to be euthanized. So make it easy for the semi-owners to adopt those cats. It reduces unnecessary euthanasia and it's lower cost than impounding them. Then thirdly, we need to stop kittens from the multi-cat sites and the timid, shy adults. And we need legislative changes to allow cats to be desexed and returned to the carer with an ear tip and microchip. And you can see these 2 cats have both got ear tips. They're on a farm that originally had 17 cats, and some of them were adopted. They're now down to 7 working cats that are all healthy. This is a tracking collar with a solar panel on it. We need to allow businesses and organisations to be listed as the owner on the microchip database. And these multi-cat sites, the key for them is plenty of food and lots of good hiding places. So assist these people to care for the cats, desexing, microchipping. They may need some health care for the cats. They very often need a bag of food every so often, and maybe cat litter. And also resolve the complaints. Listen to the complainants are living nearby, and I'll talk to you a little bit about using cameras, putting up fencing, using water deterrents, providing or moving feeding stations so they're not causing a nuisance, and providing hiding places. But complaints cost money, because the cats end up being trapped and it kills cats. Then we need to stop killing healthy but fearful, timid, shy cats. And we need legislative changes to allow impounded cats that, if they're not reclaimed and are healthy and would be euthanized because they're timid and shy, to allow them to be desexed and returned to their home location with an ear tip and a microchip. And this is called return to field. If you don't know where they came from, roughly, the street, then they'll need to be relocated as working cats, as barn cats. But it's life-saving. And it's life-saving for both the cats and the shelter staff. Because increasingly, shelters are trying to reduce their euthanasia rates. They have staff working with these cats for 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks or longer. And often those cats are starting to trust them and show recognition of the people that are doing the socialization. But when they bring down an adopter, the cat shows fear behavior and they say, decision's made, it's not going to be adoptable in the time we have, and it's going to have to be euthanized. And you can imagine what that does to the job satisfaction, let alone their mental health. So community cat programs are about reducing shelter intake and euthanasia and cat-related complaints. So it's about desexing owned cats to stop kittens being born to become stray or surrendered to a shelter. It's converting semi-owners to owners to stop timid and shy cats and kittens coming into shelters. It's about managing the multi-cat sites by desexing and microchipping the cats for the caregivers to stop those timid and shy cats and kittens coming into the shelter. It's actually TNR, but we don't talk about TNR. You certainly don't talk about the R word. It's all part of a community cat program. And we need to protect human and animal well-being by having return to field and barn cat working programs where those cats are desexed and microchipped and returned because someone's caring for them if they're in good condition. And then we need to assist and support cat owners and carers to care for their cats and resolve issues. And it's really important that animal management officers have that assistive approach rather than an enforcement and punishment approach first. That can always be used later if the assisting and supporting doesn't work. And resolve cat-related nuisance issues. So, surprise, surprise, it works. So this is the intake from the target suburbs that we were involved with, and by the third year, the intake had reduced by 63%, euthanasia by 70%. And when you look at the cats that we've desexed, it's about 4,500. Most of it is since February 2021. But 74% of those people who had a cat desexed considered themselves the owners of the cat. And another 10% were semi-owners who took ownership of the cat when they were offered free desexing for it. And in fact, all semi-owners who were caring for 1 or 2 cats took ownership at the time of desexing. A few were kittens that were removed and socialised and rehomed from the multi-cat sites. And because we've got a very special permit from the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries, we can actually desex cats that are semi-owned, being cared for at multi-cat sites. They're called restricted matter. That constitute 11% of the cats we've desexed, and then another just over 0.5% are returned to field. But that percentage will grow because the staff love return to field. And so if you look at the key factors for success of a community cat program, it's identifying suburbs with the highest cat admissions or complaint calls. If you target to the suburb but don't micro-target it within the suburb, then you're going to have to desex about 30 cats per 1,000 residents. Now, they're mostly owned and semi-owned cats. Unowned domestic cats are those that are getting food inadvertently from, say, a feed bin. There's not many of them around because once they start to hang around a site, some kind person will turn up and start to feed them. But if you micro-target it, so you target it within the suburb and you make the desexing free for the cats, and we did test $50 a cat, and the bookings dropped to 1/3. So we weren't getting the people that really needed to get their cats desexed. So you target to the suburb, and then you engage with the community and animal management officers to really, as well, go after those sites where usually they're multi-cat sites, where people are struggling and those cats are really at risk of being impounded and euthanized. And if you do those together, the targeting and then the micro-targeting, then you can desex 10 to 15 cats per year per 1,000 residents and get a significant decrease by the 3rd year. And working with complainants, as I mentioned, cameras and flyers and water deterrents and fencing to keep cats off their property. And councils need to have an assistive and supportive approach, not just handing out trap cages all the time. And guess what? It works. The number of cats observed per camera deployment over 6 months, and this is one of our camera traps, and you can see a lure here with leather, and we put fish oil on it. And this is just a 2-year period with deployments every 6 months. The number of cats over the 3 suburbs decreased by 54%. And there were some differences between the suburbs in the number of free-roaming cats, but they all decreased over the 2 years. And then I'd just like to finish up by talking about a case study of Moira. And she had multiple cats coming on her property that were not hers, and she complained to the council. And you can see she's got a beautiful garden, and she really appreciates the birds that come in for the flowering plants. And she's also, it's very tidy, and so she doesn't want cats there soiling. So she was provided trap cages by the council and trapped 4 cats, but the problem wasn't resolved. So we then provided her a water deterrent, and you can see it here connected to the hose, and you can see it closer up, and you can see that spray of water, which is activated by motion. And then we also, in the meantime, installed trail cameras, and here's a close-up of one, and again, the lure here. And from the pictures of the cats that we got, we used those to create a flyer. So, is this your cat? Do you recognize any of these cats? Are you the owner or someone who feeds them? We would like to urgently help prevent your cats from being impounded. We offer free cat desexing and microchipping. Please contact us. And in fact, one person did contact us and said, oh, that's my cat. And I've moved to another suburb. I didn't take the cat. I've left it with someone to care for because the landlord said I couldn't have a cat. And we said, well, the legislation's changed. You can have a cat. So he came and picked it up. And the others disappeared for a while. But we stayed in contact with her, and she said, look, there's one cat sitting in the driveway. And so we put the cameras out again, and you can see there's a cat here and a cat here. And in fact, there wasn't one cat sitting in the driveway. There were cats traversing her property through holes on one side of a fence and holes on the other side of a fence. And she said, oh, I'll fix my fence. So it was a shared effort to solve this problem without trapping the cats and potentially euthanizing them because they were timid and shy. And just remember, without community cat programs, someone has to kill the cats and kittens. And killing healthy animals damages people's lives, and in some cases, killing animals kills people too. And the suicide rate for the animal rescue sector in USA, which includes vets, has reached #1 spot with other emergency responders, police and fire. And I'd just like to leave you with this quote: do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. So thank you for that.